So my name is Ben Pulkenis. I am a software guy with SRC. I've been working recently in cybersecurity, and Matt Sweeney should be joining us on the phone. He has a little bit of a longer history in cybersecurity and cybermetrics. Excuse me here. So I couldn't have asked for a better introduction than Mr. Aldrich right here. The so what slide right at the beginning where, the DoD CIO says, great, I have these vulnerabilities that exist, so what? And that's really what we've been trying to attack with our latest work at SRC. And that's kind of bubbling all that up, taking that I have vulnerability 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What does that really mean at the highest levels, and how can we associate that with business risk and business applications, and in turn also operational applications? I should probably stand closer to this. So Matt, if you jump on, you can feel free to make your presence known at any point. So the goal of the talk is centered around talking a little bit about current practices in the cybermetrics community and specifically in business, and followed up with some gaps that we saw that we thought maybe we could leverage and take advantage of, and then plugging in some of those proposed metrics that we've been developing over the past year or so. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some hopefully interactive discussion about future directions and applications for those metrics.
Hello, this is Matt.
Hey, Matt. Ben here. I'm on. We've already started. So, as I said, Matt's a lead architect and software developer at SRC, and he has quite a bit of background in cybersecurity. So, the problem description overall is that cybersecurity metrics, particularly in the enterprise, tend to be focused on compliance, which is things like attack vectors, patch time, mean time to patch, duration of exposure, that kind of stuff. And we really saw this as a gap in that you're kind of missing this overall overarching picture of cybersecurity intelligence in your organization. So improved metrics and improved reporting and maybe bubbling that stuff up to a higher level might serve to assist people like the DoD CIO or CTOs at a traditional commercial company. And really the major outcome is what's going on my network, not just am I compliant. So a little bit more about a problem description. This chart is a little bit confusing, but I wanted to really hit two main points, and the first being this compromise to discovery time, which is where we're trying to plug in with some higher level metrics, and that's shortening the time from when an attack has begun and a compromise has been exploited to the time when the company discovers it. You see these things like Home Depot. They have data breaches and they're on their networks for often months at a time before they're able to effectively even know that they're there before they even begin to contain them. And then the figure on the right there, that just represents that there's a large percentage, and I should mention that this is per the Verizon, it's an industry survey data breach investigation report. But the other aspect is on that chart on the right where almost 70% of data breaches that are reported in this survey are really being found by customers, which you can imagine has a significant impact on your reputation, your business reputation. And also, if they're being found by customers, you can be rest assured that they've been living on your network for far too long if your IT personnel haven't already come across them. So just a quick high-level diagram to show that this is kind of the current ConOps that we see in the community, where you have multiple different logs, network security, oftentimes hundreds of network security appliances, all filtering into a centered log aggregation and reporting system. But what really ends up coming out of that is really siloed data pieces and these, many eyes on many different screens for IT personnel, and that results in targeted firefighting, where what we're really trying to do here with our metrics is plug into this vector right here and be able to take all that data, boil it into a single figure, kind of analyze over history, maintain all that data throughout the metrics process, and instead of putting out these targeted fires, kind of be able to see the forest through the trees. So just an example of how compliance metrics is, defining these is while valid, often a difficult thing to do. Here's a particular example of that, and that's, so I say that there's 2% hosts, we'll say over a 3-day span, that have what are considered to be high vulnerabilities. That may be within your compliance. Everything may be reporting is good on your system, but in fact what you're seeing is that 2% of hosts are actually shifting over a 3-day span. So the portion of your network that needs to be protected is actually changing over time, which with traditional compliance metrics, you're just seeing 2%, 2%, 2%, everything's fine. And in reality, maybe on day 2, one of those hosts is the CEO's machine. And you'd want that to be kind of bubbled up so that you could know about that, as that is actually a much more important breach than, say, my machine. So that's really where we wanted to plug in with SRC's hackability metrics. I'll introduce them. We've been calling them hackability in-house, so if I say hackability, that's mostly an internal term for the metrics, the overall solution to the metrics that we've developed so far. So the goals of our specific metrics that we've been working are, as I said, to come up with a one and some subsequent numbers to paint this overall picture of your network health and your IT security health. It's kind of analogous, as we've been developing them, to a credit score. So you have a bunch of underlying components, amount of debt, active lines of credit, for instance, in the credit score, and what you get out of it is a 780 or a 790 or some sort of credit score that lets you know, this is my reputation, this is my network health, or credit health, and we really wanted the hackability to be kind of analogous to that, where you have a bunch of underlying components, all of your IT security logs, and what comes out is one number that describes, yeah, I'm doing good, yeah, I'm doing bad, and paints a nice picture over the recent history, or far-reaching history, for that matter. We designed these as an in-house experiment with the commercial market in mind, so I say businesses and CEOs and CTOs a lot, but you could often think of a lot of those cases as analogous to operational risk, operational payoff, and things in the military and DoD world as well. So I want to hit on a couple things here. These were our really high-level goals from the outset for hackability, and the main points are in the upper right corner, where we really wanted to go from this defensive firefighting, oh, something just happened on my network, I got to go put that out and take care of that, to a more proactive state where you say, with this hackability metrics, you're able to see I've seen A, B, and C in the past, I can expect to see D in the future. Because I'm keeping a track of my past events, I can be more proactive going forward with my IT security. And then that actually leads right into the bottom line here, which is scaling to the overall enterprise, and that's really being able to ingest and keep around these atomic data units, if you will, that result from the logs over an indefinite period of history. Excuse me. So the approach we took was a little bit layered in a deliberate approach in order to try to best figure out what the community was doing, what they needed, and the best ways to move forward with that. And in turn, we had a team embedded with the DHS ICE Security Operations Center. We also met with our own SRC IT team. And what we really wanted to glean from these kind of folks was what they're seeing, what they need to see, what would be most beneficial for a new metric, that wouldn't burden them, but yet still allow them to know and get a better picture of what's going on in their network. And then we followed that up with meetings with our own internal executive team to say, hey, if we gave you these 15 numbers and said vulnerability 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, does that mean anything to you, or is that not going to be useful? So we really wanted to get their input too, as to, how does at the executive level, what needs to be seen, and what would be most helpful to those kind of folks. So we started with a list of, it was well over 60 metrics, and by the time that all these interviews had taken place and we'd met internally as a team and winnowed it down, we got down to about 20 to 25 metrics. We combined those into 6 categories, of which the 6 contribute to one overall hackability score. I'll slip by this as we've covered that mostly. So really just a high-level picture of what's going on. You have a business, they have often dozens of network security appliances, and what comes out of that in the end is one hackability score, 74. As you can see, there's an average, low, and high, for example. 74 is right around the average. As an executive, I can say, yeah, okay, 74 is good. I feel good about that. It's hugging the average. We're not doing terrible. We're not doing great. And, you know, on a day of 91, you say, all right, give everybody in the IT team raises. So I know we have an IT person from SRC here, so I know he'd love to hear that. So some aspects of comprehensive metrics, just some things we thought of as we went along. You know, some of these are wish list items, some of these are stuff that we've already actually implemented. As I said, this is an ongoing kind of in-house research project. You'd love to see your metrics be continuously updated. Obviously, as machine-generated data comes in, you update your hackability score to reflect that. We talk about atomic units of data in time, so that's any event that comes in through a log, break it down into its most basic pieces, attribute it with a value in time, and then as you get multiple events from multiple log sources, you can kind of normalize across that and see what's happening, what's being reported from different sources that may actually be the same thing or maybe telling you different aspects of the same threat or attack. So as a group, we tried to make sure that we tied it back to some industry control standards. You can see those listed here. So we have thought about this. We are trying to continue to integrate and help the Hackability Index and its subcomponents facilitate meeting some of these, such as like the NIST 853. I just want to touch quickly on this. What's important on this slide is that there's this kind of hierarchy where, as I mentioned, there's 6 underlying components to the Hackability Index, but they all bubble up to one that's 74, for instance. So these are the 6 underlying components that we have developed in-house that we thought would be most useful. Excuse me, before I get into these, as this is really the crux of our effort. So what we're calling defense effectiveness, this is measuring reinfections and how severe those reinfections are. Now keep in mind that what we have here is really bubbled up knowledge from the actual log sources. We're generating no new data or no new log data. We're just simply ingesting those dozens or hundreds of log files that your IT team has already employed and spent a lot of money to deploy on their network. Just bringing those in-house and trying to paint a nice clear picture of that. So from all those log sources, the defense effectiveness will tell you things like reinfections on your network, number of reinfections in time, and these things are often measured, we're measuring at the hour and day level, but there's nothing stopping you from summarizing over a week level. So length of score history would be how many sensors are dropping on and off of your network. You know, if you have an antivirus sensor that's dropping off every day, you'd want to know about that. Obviously, that sensor would likely tell you that, but how does it impact my overall network health? The length of score history would kind of give you that information. New threats is new threats that pop on your network that haven't been seen recently. So if you have a shell shock bug that, you know, maybe popped on your network 6 months ago, at the time you didn't know it, you see it again now. It's a new threat now, but now you can attribute it to being a shell shock bug. Opportunity risk is the kind of tries to paint the picture of severity of threats on your network. So if you have a lot of threats that are you know, reported by the sensor as severity level 1, that doesn't really have a huge impact on my network health necessarily. But if you have 10 events that are all severity 5, and severity 5 is as high as you get, you might want to know that, flag it, really kind of highlight that information. Surface area is simply the hosts or assets on your network that are detecting threats at any given point in time. And technical data is the overall threat activity as attributed to key assets on your network, and also normalized a little bit by some severity measures in there as well. So just a quick deep dive into opportunity risk. I wanted to give you a little insight without boring anybody too much and requiring an extra cup of coffee into what one of these metrics really looks like underneath the hood. So you can see that, as I mentioned, opportunity risk is meant to show the severity of current detections as compared to the maximum possible severity that you could see on that sensor. So for each sensor, we calculate an opportunity risk, and that can be weighted per sensor. So if you have a sensor that you really care about and you think that, you know, maybe more reliable than the others, you can weight that higher, and it should that will trickle through into your opportunity risk score. So you can see the quick formula there. The bottom line, this bottom formula is just really designed to put it on a scale of 1 to whatever this number is, we're using 10 is the maximum number of index points to attribute to opportunity risk. But a quick example shows, for this example, I'll point down here first to the end. We have an opportunity risk score of 3, which is bad, as we're on a scale of 0 to 10. Higher is better. As you mentioned, I should always mention whether or not higher or lower is better. So higher is better on a scale of 3 to 10. 3 is terrible. Why is it terrible? Well, it's likely due to the fact that you can see in our first sensor over here, we have a majority of our threats that are at the higher end of the severity scale. And in that middle sensor, the antivirus sensor, keep in mind this is just a mock example, but in the antivirus sensor, you can see 10 out of our 11 threats are actually at the highest severity level. In addition to that, we're weighting the antivirus sensor higher, and in turn, that drives down our opportunity risk index score. So some initial observations and conclusions as we've deployed this internally at SRC over a recent period of time. What we noticed a couple things. The analysis is still really ongoing. We're working with the SRC team to try to get some ground truth. That would be things like, yes, we know that we had an attack on this day. The IT team can verify that. Let's go back to the hackability score and make sure that it actually represents that. But what we were able to notice, and this is an actual screenshot from that, is that we had a lot of jumps on, a lot of spikes on weekends. So these are, the dates aren't shown here, but these are weekdays, and the spikes are weekends. And that's actually not wildly unexpected as, network activity drops on the weekends. No one's theoretically working, except for our team. So without, people hitting the internet, people doing things throughout the day, you can expect to see that your hackability index score would actually go up because your sensors are reporting less activity and less threats being reported. We also noticed things like scheduled scans at maybe 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. That sensor is then dumping a whole lot more events into the system at 2 a.m. on Tuesday, and they're attributed to that time range. So we're noticing a spike in that time too, which is also reasonable and expected. So some other things that we noticed, although the data is structured across sensors and we know what it looks like, there's often some nuances that require some effort in terms of marrying up those different data sources and how they really are attributed to different pieces of your network. So if you have a firewall and an antivirus, they may be talking about the same hosts and finding things on the same host, but there's some work that needs to happen in there to be able to, at the hackability level, to attribute that to the same host. So in terms of deploying hackability, we see a couple different applications for it. One of which, we're striving to make it, as I'm sure any metric developer is, as a kind of an industry standard, so that it could be applicable across organizations, and you could compare to your peers, like you were saying. SRC has a hackability index score of X, and Booz Allen has a hackability index score of Y, that kind of thing. And then also applications in like cyber insurance or mergers and acquisitions, pre those events happening, being able to go back and investigate a company's hackability score over the last 10 years. Some of the limitations, I will actually skip ahead because we kind of discussed those in future directions as well. So real-time behavior analysis, while the hackability index is currently operating in near real-time, every hour it ingests the logs that it's seen over the past hour, generates a hackability score. Obviously, we'd like that to be more real-time, and as well as bringing in behavior analysis from users on hosts. Incorporating risks from external factors or external indicators. I didn't talk about this much, but this is really, I think, a field that may bear a lot of fruit, and that's pulling in to the hackability index things that are like malware in the wild, so shared threat information, things like that you can then tie into your log sensors that you already have that are calculating hackability index score and say, because I have vulnerability X, Y, and Z, and the community has reported that this particular threat exploits that vulnerability, that should impact your hackability score going forward, maybe throw an alert and tell you, you should deal with this because you have these vulnerabilities and this threat is present in the wild, that kind of stuff. And then finally, predictive analytics. So while the hackability index is strictly reporting on past log events, this would be the kind of field that would be incredibly useful, I think, in that you could say, in the past I've seen on my network A, B, and C happen, and when those happen, every time A, B, and C happens, I see D. And today I saw A, B, and C an hour ago. Somebody in the IT department should know that D is coming down the pike and be able to handle that before, this goes back to, instead of putting out fires, seeing the forest through the trees and being able to proactively take care of those events before they even manifest themselves on your network. So with that, I will take any questions, or if Matt Sweeney has any particular points that he would like, he can jump in as well, but open the floor to questions.
Here, there we go, okay. I saw that exact same chart that you showed before, the sawtooth function, at the University of Regensburg IT department about 4 years ago. And it had to do with situation awareness, predictive analytics, and human factors. Again, it was the weekend activity of their students, and in fact their vulnerabilities increased over the weekends because the students were spending more time online, right, downloading various and sundry malware. Can you give me some information as to what SRC is thinking about with respect to integration of HFI, human factors efforts in the reduction of false positives as part of your predictive analysis?
Yeah, I think that a lot of that might come in with the external factors. So the second bullet here, incorporating risk from external indicators and external factors. We haven't done anything, or I haven't participated in anything explicit in that field. Matt's done a little bit of work with insider threat, which I think there could be some overlap with, where you could kind of model some behavior from human factors in order to impact your hackability score and kind of normalize for that effect, or maybe even go so far as to flag when you see that kind of activity, raise an alert to an IT person. So I'll say that while it's on the horizon, we haven't done much explicitly with it yet in terms of the hackability index, but I do think that it could bear a lot of fruit, and probably, as you mentioned, others are doing research. I'm sure it's a fair amount of research at this point. Hi, Matt.
I was going. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. It's like that device they made in Japan to stop people from thinking. So what I was going to say is that I think along the lines of what Ben was saying, there are, pardon me, the desire of many security IT professionals is to combine a lot of user-oriented behavior into patterns of activity, like people responding to a malware campaign or something like that, and combining that with external threat indicators to know where that campaign came from. And so that's something that's kind of on our radar as certain use cases that we're working toward with the hackability index. But it's as we fold in some of this external threat intelligence information, that's something that we definitely want to target. I hope I only caught part of the question, so I hope I'm on target there for the response.
Yep, thanks, Matt.
Yes, I was just wondering, can your model take into account the differing criticalities of some servers or systems? So, for instance, if one server served thousands of hosts, would the log files associated with that server weigh more heavily than with a lesser critical server or system?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's so we do handle that in a little bit of a roundabout way. So I'll talk to it briefly and then talk about the implications. But so in terms of the hackability index, what we really wanted to do was paint this overall picture, but yet maintain, I didn't mention this much, but maintain that ability to drill down into the raw events themselves and see what's going on and what's triggering those things. So we do retain the information that comes along with a lot of the log events. So in this particular case, if you had a number of threats on a particular machine that was a server, you could, it comes down to a view reporting kind of thing then, where you could say, show me the actual machine name of any machine that has too many threats or specific vulnerabilities. You then, since the hackability index retains the underlying information there, you could display that, the name of the server, server XYZ, and know that this should be flagged as a bigger problem because this serves half of our network, our corporate network. So while we don't currently have the ability to weight particular machines, there is that ability to still drill down and see what's going on at the host or asset level, and be able to present that information to a user as well.
Then I would add that also we can ingest information about the network breakdown, and we can take the different domains that are, if we're looking at mission capability by domain or in certain geographic locations, that's a future direction for what we're doing. So we actually developed a matrix while we worked with the folks at ICE to rack and stack the priority of mission capabilities. And so that's something that's important in recognizing we've been developing future concepts along those lines.
On that same thought, could you not have a unique sensor at that location and
Certainly.
Unique ID on that sensor and then weight that sensor?
Certainly. In fact, if you did, if the IT department did choose to do that, take for example the opportunity risk, but this also floats across all 6 of those particular categories. We have a weight that we incorporate per sensor, so you could weight, if that server has a single sensor on it, and that server is serving half of your network, you boost that weight up so that has more of an impact on your overall network score. Does that answer your question? Sure. In the back. Yeah, so I think, if I understand the question correctly, that's really the second bullet here. That's incorporating factors that are known external factors outside of your network. So while the hackability index computes over the internals that are being reported on the network, the overarching goal, the future goal of this is really to incorporate that kind of external information and say, today there's 15 new malware that exists in the world. Let's think about and try to figure out a good way to show that and display that information in the hackability index, given your current vulnerabilities on your network and all the internals that are being reported as well. So kind of trying to marry both the external and the internal information, while this hackability score doesn't show that currently. That is a definite goal of the work. Anything else? Thank you.